The Wife is First. Volume 3, Gathering Storm. Chapter 85, An Old Friend Visits. Jing Chen directly admitted that Ma Zhou was indeed his childhood friend, the one Jing Xiao thought to be his reading companion. When the Zhou family was convicted, he was also exiled. Since Jing Chen pleaded for his behalf, he was originally allowed to stay in the palace, but thinking of how his family was full of old, weak, women and children who needed a young male family member like him to take care of them, he declined the prince's kindness and went to the remote place where they had been exiled to. Having confirmed Ma Zhou's identity, Mu Hanzhang's good impression of him further improved. Jing Chen's reading companion at that time was named Zhou Yunji, the eldest son of Minister Zhou. It was said that he was extremely intelligent and could recite texts that he had seen only once. Before the unfortunate incident of the Zhou family, the teacher of the Mu family had often mentioned him. He's not as impressive as the rumors made him out to be. Jing Chen shook his head helplessly. Ma Zhou was just an eloquent speaker and had been able to win over their imperial tutor, who in turn praised him a few more times in front of everyone. The Mu family teacher was a disciple of the imperial tutor who had probably exaggerated the words of his mentor. That's right, it's not true that he can recite texts that he read only once. Jing Xiao echoed. When he was a child, he saw Zhou Yunji copying the text he had supposedly memorized into his hand and caught him right there and then. The rascal bribed him with a handful of candies and told him not to tell anyone. When he heard this, Mu Hanzhang laughed. Then he switched the conversation about the recent events in the court. The eldest prince wishes to return to the court, but the request letter is still on the way. During this period, when Mu Hanzhang was managing some affairs on Jing Chen's behalf, only then did he found out how powerful his brother-in-law was and how far his reach extended. Jing Chen took a sip of tea and looked at Jing Xiao. What do you think? Jing Xiao frowned. The rebellion of the southern barbarians had not yet ended, but that coward Jing Rong already wanted to come back with his tail between his legs. If this wasn't handled right, this responsibility would fall into Jing Xiao's hand. He's not afraid of losing face and we can't stop him from returning, but then, Imperial Father will never give up on the Yunnan Tibet region. In any ways, I won't go. I'm not telling you should go. Jing Chen glared at him, then he turned to Mu Hanzhang and asked him what he thought. We can send someone else. Mu Hanzhang answered as he slowly rubbed the rim of the cup. If the eldest prince wanted to come back, they couldn't stop him, as everything would depend on the emperor's wishes. Who? Jing Chen had some people in mind, but he still wanted to listen to their opinions. The most appropriate should be the Count of Yongchang. Who knew, he might even earn himself a marquis title there. Jing Xiao sneered. Didn't the Countess of Yongchang couldn't bear to see his prince consort being granted a marquis title? Then they should let her husband go the battlefield to find himself a title of marquis. ******. A few days later, the letter from the eldest Prince Jingrong requesting to return to the court was handed over to Emperor Hongzheng. Useless trash. Emperor Hongzheng threw the letter to the floor in front of the whole court. Your Majesty, the southern barbarians have now grown arrogant. If we suddenly withdraw our troops, they might interpret it as us fearing them, which will fuel their arrogance further. It might make dealing with them more difficult in the future. The Minister of War said worriedly. Since the death of the old Prime Minister, Emperor Hongzheng has not appointed another Prime Minister. He had assigned the duties of the Prime Minister to the 6 ministries where the princes and some nobles were in charge. In turn, those princes and nobles in charge assigned official positions to the rest of the nobility. Any miscellaneous duties that were unaccounted for were directly assigned to the ministers. Thus, the words of these 6 ministers held a lot of weight when they spoke in court. Sure enough, as soon as Minister Sun spoke, many people echoed his words. Imperial Father. The 4th Prince Jingyu suddenly stepped forward and bowed. This prince heard that eldest brother is suffering from the poor air and miasma in Yunnan Tibet. He has been ill for more than a month. Now that the weather is getting hotter, there would be more snakes, insects, rats, and ants in Yunnan Tibet than before, which will be very harmful to the eldest brother's health. Eldest brother is now earnestly giving up the chance to make meritorious service, but only because his body cannot endure any more. The fourth prince stated his words very emotionally, as if he was really deeply concerned for his brother. Emperor Hongzheng was quite satisfied with how the fourth prince protected his eldest brother, and the fierceness in his eyes softened slightly. Jing Chen looked at the fourth prince, who was on the verge of bursting into tears, and his eyes darkened. When he was in Jiangnan, Ji Huaiqing showed him the letters sent by the imperial court. The imperial court's intention to withdraw the vassal status was more and more obvious with each letter. Now the song that the eldest prince and Jingyu were suddenly singing must have had something to do with the situation on Huainan. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. When a good opportunity arose, they could just give up on the bad one. How could there be such a free thing in the world? Jing Shao secretly glanced at his prince consort. Mu Hanzhong signaled for him not to speak, so he lowered his head obediently and said nothing. Emperor Hongzheng just remained silent as he listened to the arguments of the ministers regarding this matter. In general, one side felt that the southern barbarians were just a small group of hooligans and not worth spending too much time on, while the other side thought that the overall situation was important and that it would be a huge loss of face should a prince flee from the battle. Hearing the word flee, Emperor Hongzheng frowned again. After everyone was done giving their opinion, Jing Chen stepped out and slowly picked up the memorial that the emperor thrown down from the pedestal. He read the contents carefully, and then he lifted up the hem of his robes to kowtow and said, addressing Imperial Father, after reading this memorial, it seems that eldest brother truly doesn't seem to be well. This prince sincerely requests for your majesty to allow him to return to the capital. The fourth prince's eyes suddenly widened. He couldn't quite believe this reaction of Jing Chen and quickly thought about what could be his purpose for doing this. He glanced at Jing Shao, who was looking down and keeping quiet, and immediately understood that Prince Rui must have wanted to take this opportunity to recommend someone else who will fill the gap to prevent Jing Shao from being sent to Yunnan Tibet. A sneer curled up at the corner of his lips. How could he let them get their wish? Your Majesty, the eldest prince should naturally return to the capital. However, the rebellion of the southern barbarians has not been quelled. We must send someone who is capable to lead the battle and resolve the situation as soon as possible. The Duke of Mao quickly stepped forward and spoke. That's right, Your Majesty, this subject think. The Count of Yongchang stepped out to speak, but the Marquis of Beiwei took the lead and said, this subject thinks that the Count of Yongchang is the most suitable. The Count of Yongchang's eyes widened immediately. He didn't expect that Mu Jian, who rarely spoke during court sessions, would suddenly push him out. This subject is soft-spoken and not intimidating enough to deter the southern barbarians. The Count of Yongchang said hurriedly. Before the expedition last year, the court had already argued that it would be best for a prince to go and take charge of the campaign against the southern barbarians. When Emperor Hongzheng heard this, he thought of the ruckus that the Countess of Yongchang had been making in front of the Empress Dowager and immediately became unhappy. He turned to look straight to his son, who was standing so upright that he almost blended with the coiled dragon pillar, and asked, Jing Shao, what do you think? Mu Hanzhang's heart tightened and his hands that were hidden inside the purple cloud-patterned court clothes secretly clenched into fists. With the emperor asking this question, it meant that he was upset by this matter and wanted to send Jing Shao to resolve it quickly. This prince thinks that the small group of bandits that the southern barbarians are, is nothing much to worry about. It is most suitable to send people who have never led an army to practice. Jing Shao's implication was that the southern barbarians were nothing but a small group of bandits and the fight with them was nothing but a small skirmish. Even if they lose, they wouldn't lose much and the emperor could just send whoever needed military training. In other words, he was making it clear that he didn't want to go and that letting him handle it would be an overkill, a waste of his capability. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the fourth prince's faction suddenly changed their expressions. The only prince in front of them who had never led troops before was Jing Yu. With that thought, the Count of Yongchang's face became even more pale. In order to save the fourth prince, they would most likely push him out. Jing Shao being unbridled in the court was not something unusual, so Emperor Hongzheng only frowned slightly at his straightforward remarks but did not rebuke him out loud. The Count of Yongchang has indeed never led an army before. The Marquis of Dingnan said slowly, as if he just suddenly thought of it. The Marquis of Dingnan was Jing Chen's father-in-law. To avoid suspicion, he rarely speaks in court. However, since the Marquis of Beiwei have spoken today, it should be fine for him to voice his remarks as well. Soon after, the court overwhelmingly suggested that the Count of Yongchang should be sent there. Even a few officials from the fourth prince's faction also agreed. Emperor Hongzheng immediately decided on the matter and issued a decree. 3 days later, the Count of Yongchang would leave for the Yunnan-Tibet region and the eldest prince would be allowed to return to the capital. Your Majesty, you have to stop this. The dangers in the Yunnan-Tibet region are not something that a man of my husband's age can bear, the Countess of Yongchang cried out in Fenji Palace. His Majesty has already issued an edict, what can this Empress do? The Empress was so angry that she kept banging the table. Her brother really couldn't do anything right. Whenever they tasked him to do something, he never got it done satisfactorily. Now, he had even gotten himself involved in such a mess. Your Highness, he is your own brother. You can't just ignore him. The Countess of Yongchang held her handkerchief and sobbed. At the end of the day, the Count of Yongchang was indeed her brother and Jingyu still had to rely on the influence of his uncle's family somewhat. The Empress was still angry but she lowered her voice and said, "Tell him to calm down and just go to the Yunnan-Tibet for a while. Isn't General Zhengdong still there? Tell him to stay out of anything and let the general take care of things. After some time, this Empress will find someone to replace him there." The fourth prince also said the same words to the Count of Yongchang. The most important thing at the moment was to have someone to replace the eldest prince so he could get back to the capital. Although Jingyu and the eldest prince didn't always have a common goal, he could serve as a helper in any case. After some time, he would wage war against Huainan and the eldest prince could help him keep an eye on Jing Chen and Jing Shao in the capital, something that his uncle could not help him with. After the court session was dismissed, Jing Shao rushed to his prince consort and said, "I saw Jing Yu's face turned green." Mu Hanzhong responded and continued walking forward. Jing Shao jumped in front of him dissatisfiedly and looked at his wife's face while walking backwards. "My response today was very timely, isn't?" Mu Hanzhong took a good look at him. After being together with him for a year, Jing Shao still didn't know what his own begging for praise expression was like, how he would stare at the other with sparkling eyes. Mu Hanzhong couldn't but smile when he thought of how his husband looked the same way on the second day they were married as he offered him his pants. Mu Hanzhong's handsome face was even more handsome now because of his good frame of mind and the nourishing medicinal tonics which Jing Shao made him drink regularly. He was now about 30% more beautiful than before. In the bright sunshine of early summer, his smile was really indescribably charming. Jing Shao was stunned by his beauty anew. He stretched out his hand to touch him when he suddenly fell backward with an ouch and fell into a cart of green vegetables. Ha ha ha. Mu Hanzhong saw the vegetable cart and was about to give a warning, but before he could do so, Jing Shao had already fallen into a pile of vegetables. There was even a leaf stuck to his head which was very funny, so he couldn't help but laugh out loud. The old man pushing the cart frowned, obviously unhappy, but he didn't dare to say anything when he saw the two of them were wearing court robes. He could only look at the crushed vegetables with a distressed expression. Jing Shao jumped up angrily. A pile of vegetable leaves falling from his body as he looked with an aggrieved expression towards his prince consort who was still laughing at him. Seeing that Jing Shao's was getting angry, Mu Hanzhong gave the old man a few pieces of silver and asked him to leave quickly. Then he walked over as he tried to hold back his laughter and took off the green vegetables on top of his husband's head and straightened his wrinkled court clothes. You did very well today. You were so domineering that the Count of Yongchang was almost scared to death. That's right. After hearing this compliment, Jing Xiao immediately grinned. He already forgot to be embarrassed with the recent incident and went home happily. As soon as they arrived in front of their residence, they saw Hao Das Hao, whom they hadn't seen for a long while. Your Highness, military advisor. Although Hao Das Hao had been granted the title of general, he didn't have to attend regular court session. He was also not fond of giving gifts nor of visiting other people, so he had not gone to see them as well. General Hao is such a rare guest, please come in. Mu Hanjiang smiled. He felt much camaraderie with those he met on the battlefield than those people in the capital. No need. Hao Das Hao was a little embarrassed as he continued, it's like this. My wife arrived in the capital yesterday and prepared a meal at home. We want to invite your Highness and the military advisor to dine and have a chat. Elder sister Hao has come to the capital, that's good news. Jing Xiao smiled. Seeing Hao Das Hao's awkward and embarrassed look, his wife must have insisted that he go and invite them to come with such a sudden invitation. But then Hao Das Hao was a henpecked husband, so he could only come over and wait for them at the gate to come back from the court session. It must have not been easy for the madam to come over to the capital. We would definitely like to dine with you, Mu Hanjiang said with a smile. Go back first and let the madam know. We will come over after we have changed our clothes. Hao Das Hao smiled earnestly when he heard this. He nodded quickly and returned to let his wife know that he had accomplished his mission. Mu Hanjiang had a good impression of Hao Das Hao's straightforward and robust madam. Remembering her kindness in helping him wash the tiger cub, he had Duo Fu prepared a generous gift that they would bring with them. Then they changed into regular robes and together with Jing Xiao, went to General Hao's residence. The general's mansion was not far from Prince Cheng's residence. Although it is not as luxurious as the Prince Cheng's residence, it was certainly very grand and better compared with other normal residences. As soon as the two of them entered the door, they heard the plump lady's voice that was full of vigor. Hurry up, His Highness and the Prince Consort will be here soon, so be quick. They couldn't help but look at each other and smile. This lady really couldn't stand idly no matter where she was. Elder sister, please rest for a while. They will be coming any time soon. Why don't you go inside and tidy up for a bit? The couple who were following the servant who was guiding them down a winding path from the door suddenly heard a clear and familiar voice. Jing Xiao couldn't help but pause and turn to look at his prince consort. He saw that he also had a surprise expression that probably mirrored his own. He quickly walked forward and stepped over the threshold to enter the room. There was a large pear wood table in the room carved with floral designs and was laden with various dishes. The plump lady was putting the dishes she had personally cooked hurriedly on the table while Hao Das Hao was being instructed to get the wine. The servants were also busily rushing about. Only one person was being leisurely. He was sitting at the table and holding a cup of tea as he looked at the two of them with a smile that was not really a smile. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 3, Gathering Storm. Chapter 86, Numerous Chaos. Wearing robes as white as snow and having such picturesque features, who else could it be but Ji Huaiqing? Your Highness. Lord Marquis. When the plump lady saw that the two of them had come, she hurriedly greeted them and curtsied. She had obviously just learned this etiquette as she was awkwardly doing the action. Elder sister Hao, I trust you had been well. Mu Hanjiang greeted with a smile. Jing Xiao, on the other hand, glared at Ji Huaiqing as he confirmed that he was indeed the king of Huainan himself and asked with his eyes why was he here. Ji Huaiqing looked on as if he didn't understand. He stood up and saluted the two of them, greetings to His Highness and Lord Marquis. I met this brother Jiyu on the road, the robust lady introduced him enthusiastically. My pack mule became lame halfway on the journey. Fortunately, I met brother Jiyu who was kind enough to give me a ride. Brother Jiyu was an official who came to the capital on business. Since he had no place to stay in while in the capital, I decided to let him stay here. This humble official Ye Qian is the magistrate of Huaiyang County in the south of the Yangtze River. This official had come to the capital to report on my duties. Fortunately, General Hao and his kind madam were generous enough to allow me to stay with them for a couple of days. Ye Qian glanced at the plump lady gratefully. His words and actions were modest and polite, befitting the position he claimed. If it were not for that one-of-a-kind handsome face, Jing Xiao would have thought that he was mistaken him for someone else. Mu Hanzhong pressed his lips to suppress a smile. The so-called Huaiyang County was from the previous dynasty. It had been renamed Danyang City, and Danyang City was the main city of the Huainan fiefdom. Could he be considered as its county magistrate? Seeing that Prince Cheng didn't disdain the presence of this stranger, the plump lady warmly invited them to take a seat. Then she turned to the kitchen to cook 2 more dishes. There were only a few servants in Hao Das Hao's residence from the beginning. Those who had come to set the table were soon sent off to do other works. As soon as Madame Hao left, only the 3 of them were left to stare blankly at each other. "Why are you here?" Jing Xiao asked in a low voice. "It was just a chance encounter on the road," Ye Qian said innocently. Jing Xiao felt that the veins on his forehead throb. Vassal kings were not allowed to enter the capital without an imperial decree. Once he was seen, it would not be a small matter. The situation had already come to this point and he was still in the mood to joke. Mu Hanzhong placed his hand over Jing Xiao's fist and patted it comfortingly as he said softly, "Did elder brother came to the capital for something important?" This question was unavoidable. Ye Qian smiled and put down the teacup. Then he feigned melancholy and said, "There is a beautiful person I saw once whom I was never able to forget. Not seeing them for one day makes me miss them like crazy." "What do you mean?" Jing Xiao frowned. "What's wrong with this man? The more anxious you are, the less likely he was to speak properly. The way he wouldn't just get to the point could just drive a person insane." Mu Hanzhong glanced at Ye Qian in astonishment. Elder brother must be joking. Ye Qian immediately put away the melancholy look on his face and gave an insincere smile. "Is Jun Qing doubting my sincerity?" After saying that, he moved as if he was going to take Mu Hanzhong's hand that was on top of Jing Xiao's hand, but as expected, he was greeted by Jing Xiao's fist. Elder brother must not make a move on other people's wife. Before Jing Xiao could finish the sentence, his fist had already reached the corner of Ye Qian's slightly raised eyes. Ye Qian had long anticipated this move. He nimbly stretched out his hand to clasp the fist and slipped a small thing into Jing Xiao's hand. Then, he grabbed Jing Xiao's shoulder to pull him over and said by his ear, "Help me return this." Jing Xiao held the small thing in his hand and nodded slightly. When Ye Qian let him go, he suddenly turned his right arm and hit him in the chest with an elbow. Ye Qian was unprepared for this and he almost fell face first from his chair. He put his hand over his chest and coughed for a long time. Cough. Cough. How unbecoming is it to beat an official of the imperial court? Whatever will you do next? Don't talk like my brother. When Jing Xiao heard him try to imitate his brother, he moved to give him another punch. When Hao Das Hao came in with the wine jar, he saw the 3 of them were sitting quietly and not talking much except that Ye Qian was covering his chest with one hand and rubbed it slowly. "Brother Ji, what's the matter?" Hao Das Hao still had a good impression of Ye Qian, who had kindly escorted his wife to the capital. "I've had heart problems since I was a child. Please don't worry about it." Ye Qian smiled weakly, looking a bit like a sickly scholar. "Then you should see a doctor." Hao Das Hao frowned when he heard this and was about to go out to find a doctor. No need, no need," Ye Qian hurriedly grabbed the upright and earnest General Hao. "I just got so happy to meet His Highness Prince Cheng and His Highness Prince Consort Cheng that I got too excited for a moment." When Jing Xiao heard this, his forehead throbbed again, making him feel like giving him another punch.
Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The meal were all home-cooked dishes, most of which were cooked by the robust madam herself. Naturally, her skills were obviously incomparable from those of the imperial chefs, but these three people did not often get the chance to eat such simple dishes, so for them, they tasted fresh and interesting. Even Mu Hanjiang couldn't help but ask for an extra half bowl of rice. Madam's skills are so good, General Hao is really blessed. Mu Hanjiang said with a smile while holding the after-dinner tea. You're still so good at talking, the plump lady said with a smile until her eyes narrowed into slits. But he doesn't think he's lucky and complained about my cooking every day. Hao Das Hao felt a little uncomfortable when he heard his wife starting to criticize him again. He turned to Jing Shao and said, Your Highness, this subordinate received something the day before yesterday and would like His Highness to take a look. Jing Shao glanced at him and said, All right. He then stood up, asked his prince consort to stay here for a while and walked out of the hall with Hao Das Hao. When he reached the corner of the corridor, Jing Shao stopped and looked at the flowers and plants in the garden. What do you want to say? The general's mansion was newly built, so the flowers and plants had yet to flourish. Hao Das Hao also didn't know much about gardening, so he just planted several elm trees in the courtyard. They have just sprouted, and the short trees were covered with tender green leaves. That Sir Jiyu said he knows Your Highness, but the news of him coming to the capital cannot be made known publicly. It's difficult to talk about it outside your residence today. I hope Your Highness will forgive this general for not informing this earlier, Hao Das Hao said in a low voice. This was something Jiyu Huiqing had told him alone, not even his wife knew about it. What he said is right. Jing Shao turned to Hao Das Hao and said, Let him stay with you first. Should anyone ask, just say he is a relative of your wife's family. I'll have him leave in 2 days. Jiyu Huiqing was always cautious. When he was in Jiangnan, none of Jing Shao's subordinates had seen him, including Hao Das Hao. Though, he didn't know how he tricked Hao Das Hao into believing him. He also brought 2 guards. Because he wanted to see Your Highness, this general did not let him bring them to the front yard. Hao Das Hao then reported everything that Jiyu Huiqing had said and done. Jing Shao nodded, patted his shoulder and praised how Hao Das Hao was always much more reliable than Zhao Meng. He believed that nothing would happen if Jiyu Huiqing stayed here. On the way back to their residence, Jing Shao took out what Jiyu Huiqing had thrusted into his hand and looked at it. What is this? Mu Hanjiang picked up the thing in his palm and looked at it. It was a jade ornament. It was made of green jade and was exquisitely carved. It was cool to the touch and connected to a red silk waist tie. He just stuffed it into my hand when we were fighting earlier. He told me to help him return it. Jing Shao felt puzzled since Jiyu Huiqing didn't say to whom he should return this to. Mu Hanjiang had a strange look on his face when he heard this. He leaned against Jing Shao's chest and held up the jade ornament and carefully looked at it against the sunlight. This kind of jade ornament is of a very high quality. It's the sort that can only be worn by princes or high nobility. That should be my brother's. Jing Shao held the reins in one hand and slowly wrapped his other arms around Mu Hanjiang's waist. But Mu Hanjiang felt like he had discovered some secret. What's the matter? Enjoying the feeling of the sweet-smelling and warm body in his arms, Jing Shao secretly grinned while he asked the question casually. Mu Hanjiang frowned and turned sideways to look at him. This shape means that it was probably embedded in the belt. Why did a jade ornament embedded in a belt fall into the hands of others? Soon after, the 2 curious people turned their horse around and went directly to Prince Rui's estate. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jing Chen had yet to take an afternoon nap and was enjoying the cool air in the yard while reading a book in his hand. He heard that the Chen couple were coming, so before they could even enter the estate, he had already had the servants bring 2 more seats. Why are you 2 here? Jing Chen frowned. The weather was starting to get hot by the 5th lunar month. Since they came running here when the sun was at its hottest, then it must be something urgent. Jiyu Huiqing has come to the capital. Jing Shao said in a low voice. Jing Chen sat up straight. What is he here for? Right now, the situation was quite tense. Coming to the capital at this time, wasn't he just giving the court ammunition to be used against him? I don't know either. Jing Shao scratched his head. 9 out of 10 things that came from that man's mouth was fake. Even after asking him about this that entire time, Jing Shao still wasn't able to get a straight answer from him. He just asked me to return something for him. Does this thing belong to Gerger? Jing Chen looked at the green jade ornament that Jing Shao handed over and his face immediately darkened a bit. He rubbed at his aching forehead and said, "Tell him to leave quickly. There are so many eyes in the capital who will likely recognize him." Just then, Princess Consort Rui came over with tea. The weather is hot, so I made herbal tea. Do try it. Thank you, sister-in-law. Mu Hanjiang smiled and accepted it, but Jing Shao's face didn't have a good expression. His prince consort had to elbow him before he accepted it. Princess Consort Rui's complexion was still not good, but she looked better than when Jing Chen was away from the capital. Is sister-in-law feeling better? Mu Hanjiang asked after taking a sip of tea. Thanks to the marquis thoughts. I've been doing a lot better lately. Consort Xiao said politely. Sister-in-law's words give more credit than this Hanjiang is due. Mu Hanjiang's smile faded a little and he lowered his head to take a sip of tea. He wanted to praise the tea well, but now he couldn't say such remark anymore. Jing Chen glanced at her and said, "If you're not feeling well, don't come out. Go back to the house and take a rest." Before Princess Consort Rui could speak, a servant from the front yard hurriedly came in to report, saying that a servant from Prince Cheng's estate had something urgent to report. It was Yun Song who had come. He was sweating profusely from running and gave a hasty salute before he said, "People from the Marquis of Beiwei Mansion came to report that the secondary consort of their household is experiencing symptoms of miscarriage." Mu Hanjiang stood up suddenly and asked, "What's the current situation?" This servant don't know the details. They just said that they have already fetched an imperial physician. Yun Song knew that this matter was important and went all the way from the general's mansion to Prince Rui's estate. "Jun Qing, don't worry." Jing Shao held his hand and looked back at his brother. "You two go there quickly. I'll send an imperial physician over." Jing Chen also stood up and rushed them away before Jing Shao could say anything. Looking at the two figures who were leaving in a hurry, Jing Chen called his men and instructed, "Go to the imperial physician's courtyard and ask for Dr. Zhang to come." His subordinates accepted the order and left. Consort Xiao looked at Jing Chen's face and said, "I heard that the Marquis of Beiwei's secondary consort is already 7 months pregnant. It should be all right." Jing Chen nodded and glanced at her. "Have Jing Shao been here during my absence?" "They came here once. They just said a few words and then left." Consort Xiao replied, downplaying the couple's visit. Jing Chen frowned when he heard this and looked at her thoughtfully. "What are you dissatisfied with your brother-in-law?" "What do you mean by this, Your Highness? How can this consort be dissatisfied with my brother-in-law?" Princess Consort Rui asked in confusion. Jing Chen looked at her with deep eyes for a long time and said, "It's fine if you don't want to give Xiao Si to Jing Shao, but why do you have to go out of your way to embarrass them?" When Consort Xiao heard this, she immediately felt aggrieved. She had given birth to her youngest son with much difficulty. She had suffered so much that both mother and son had almost died. How could she be willing to have him be adopted by someone else? Ever since Jing Chen mentioned this adoption matter, every time she saw Prince Cheng and his wife, she couldn't put on a good expression. "Your Highness, it's not that this consort was unwilling, but Xiao Si's health is not good. How can we give him to 2 men to take care of? Besides, the reason why His Majesty made Prince Cheng marry a male wife was to..." "Shut up." Jing Chen immediately scolded her, not allowing her to finish the rest of her sentence. While it was not peaceful at Prince Rui's estate, at the Marquis of Beiwei residence, things were downright chaotic. Jing Shao took his prince consort and had Xiao He rushed through the back gate of the Marquis of Beiwei's residence, frightening the servants guarding the gate. They ran all the way to Lady Qiu's small courtyard where the imperial doctor was treating her inside the inner room while the Marquioness of Beiwei was standing outside the door with a poor expression. The several maids behind her were all trembling with fear and did not even dare to breathe too loudly. Only the two maidservants of Lady Qi were busily running back and forth carrying hot water and cloth towels. When Mu Hanjiang saw this situation, he felt that something was wrong. He greeted Madame Du and hurriedly went into the inner room. Jing Shao could not enter the inner room at will, but he did not leave. He sat in the seat of honor in the main room. When the Marquioness of Beiwei saw that Prince Cheng had actually entered the inner house and seemed like he had no intention of leaving, her facial expression became even more ugly. However, she couldn't do anything about it and had to have people wait carefully on him. She herself sat down stiffly, not knowing whether she should stay or leave. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 3, Gathering Storm. Chapter 87, Nightmare Syndrome. Mu Hanjiang entered the inner room and saw an imperial physician checking his mother's pulse. The Marquis of Beiwei was sitting on a stool at the head of the bed and Ji Ruoyi was standing beside the bed, waiting upon them. The fetus is a little unstable, but fortunately there is no signs that the fetus has died. After checking the pulse, the imperial doctor pondered for a moment and then prescribed a prescription to stabilize the unborn fetus. Mu Hanjiang walked closer and saw Lady Qiu lying on the bed. Her complexion was a little pale with a layer of fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. "Mother, are you still feeling uncomfortable?" Mu Hanjiang sat down by the bed, took the handkerchief that Ji Ruoyi handed to him and wiped the cold sweat on her forehead. "It's better now." Lady Qiu's voice was a little weak, but her words were clear and her palms were warm. It seemed she would be fine for the time being. She was perfectly fine before, how come there were suddenly signs of miscarriage? Mu Hanjiang turned to ask the imperial doctor. The prenatal nourishing medicine was prescribed by imperial physician Zhang, and Ji Ruoyi had always prepared it by herself, while the food for Lady Qiu was even more meticulously taken care of. Because Lady Qiu had become severely ill when she was in her 3rd month of pregnancy, Mu Hanjiang specially transferred a cook from their residence to the service of Lady Qiu. The small kitchen in the courtyard was exclusively used for cooking her food. The imperial doctor had been hastily called over by the Marquis of Beiwei and was not clear on exactly what had happened. It seemed that the madam had just been frightened and did not eat anything wrong. Frightened? Mu Hanjiang lowered his eyes to look at his father, who was sitting by the bedside. The Marquis of Beiwei sighed and said, "It's good that you are fine. Just go and get the medicine according to the imperial doctor's prescription." He said these words to Ji Ruoyi, but she took the prescription and did not go out but handed the prescription over to Mu Hanjiang instead. Mu Hanjiang took it and looked at it. It was basically the same as the prescription prescribed by imperial physician Zhang. Some of the medicinal herbs were slightly different, but it should be a mild prescription, which meant that the problem was not serious. The imperial physician accepted the gift of thanks from the Marquis of Beiwei, bowed to Mu Hanjiang and left the inner room. When he walked outside, he saw Jing Shao sitting on the main seat, so he had to come forward and salute to him. "How's the situation?" Jing Shao asked. It was not a big issue and the secondary consort should be fine. The imperial physician replied honestly. Unexpectedly, the Marquioness of Beiwei breathed a sigh of relief when she heard this. Jing Shao glanced at her and felt that this matter was a little strange. ******. How were you suddenly startled?" Mu Hanjiang held his mother's hand and asked her in a warm voice. Lady Qiu pressed her lips. What happened earlier was truly frightening. Now that her son was here, she felt like she finally had someone who would support her. She became calmer and felt that the pain in her abdomen have eased a lot. However, when her son asked this, she couldn't say anything and could only shook her head. "It's good now that the child is fine." Mu Hanjiang frowned and shifted his head to ask the Marquis of Beiwei with a look. Your mother was walking in the garden and almost fell into the pond. Fortunately, this maid was so agile and averted a disaster. The Marquis of Beiwei quickly answered. He himself was not clear on the matter as he didn't have the time to inquire exactly what happened and could only tell Mu Hanjiang what he knew. Ruo Yi, what happened? Mu Hanjiang's face turned cold as he said, how many times have I told you that you must follow her every step of the way? Ji Ruoyi immediately knelt down on the ground after hearing this and said, this servant deserves to die for failing to take good care of the secondary consort, but the young master suddenly rushed out and pushed the secondary consort. This servant didn't get the chance to stop him. The room fell silent for a moment. Mu Hanjiang lowered his eyes and said nothing while the Marquis of Beiwei was stunned. Mu Lingbao have something to do with this incident? The servant who had reported back to him about this hadn't said anything, and this maidservant had only revealed this information now. Why didn't you tell me earlier? The Marquis of Beiwei was a little embarrassed as it appeared as if he was deliberately withholding information. Mother should try to sleep for a while. I'll let you know when the medicine is ready. Mu Hanjiang didn't say anything more about the issue. He pulled the quilt and covered Lady Qiu with it. Lady Qiu looked at him with her beautiful eyes, knowing that he was going to deal with this matter. Although she didn't want to cause trouble, today's incident had really frightened her. She pursed her lips and finally chose stay silent. The Marquis of Beiwei also said a few words of comfort before taking Mu Hanjiang and Ji Ruoyi out of the inner room. It's just a small matter in the inner courtyard. There was no need for His Highness to come all the way here. The Marquis of Beiwei was not expecting that Jing Xiao would be here as well, so he hastily stepped forward to salute him. This is no small matter, Jing Xiao said with a smile as he motioned for his prince consort to come over and sit with him. Why haven't I seen elder brother? Mu Hanjiang walked over to Jing Xiao with a cold face and took the first seat under the main seat. Lingbao hasn't recovered yet. He just suffered a little fright. This consort asked him to go back and rest. The Marquis of Beiwei said hurriedly. Suffered a fright. Mu Hanjiang only thought that this was funny when he heard this. He pushed a pregnant woman and he was the one who got a fright? It seemed that he was even more delicate than a pregnant woman. His hands that was hidden in the sleeves gradually clenched into fists. What happened today was something that he shouldn't let go just like this. If they just let this matter pass lightly and these people were not taught a lesson, the child in his mother's belly will definitely not be born safely. What fright did he suffer? Marquis of Beiwei sat on the main seat on the other side. He slapped the table after hearing what his main wife had said. Considering his age, he cherished this miracle pregnancy so much that he looked forward to the birth of this child every single day. Call the heir to come here. A servant followed the order and left. The Marquis of Beiwei knew who had divulged what had really happened and gave Ji Ruoyi a fierce look. However, Ji Ruoyi turned a blind eye to her and stood behind Mu Hanjiang with lowered eyes, making it clear that she was from the Prince Cheng's estate and not under the control of the Marquis of Beiwei. Madame Du felt that the situation was very unfavorable for her and her son. She wrung the handkerchief in her hand back and forth several times, then carefully considered her words as she said, Master Marquis, Lingbao didn't do it intentionally. He must not have been looking where he was going and accidentally collided with her. The child is fine anyways. Though, it would be good if he could be allowed to come and speak a little with Sister Qiu. With just a few words, she tried to avoid blame for the situation and spoke as if she was being generous for letting her innocent son come to apologize to a mere secondary consort. However, none of the three people sitting in the upper seats replied to her in any way. The Marquis of Beiwei ignored her while the other two couldn't be bothered to argue with her. Mu Hanjiang lowered his eyes and said nothing. He heard that Mu Lingbao had been languishing in bed for 2 months and was now able to walk. Mu Hanjiang hadn't seen him recently, but thinking about it, this matter couldn't be an accident. Lady Qiu had always been extremely cautious with this pregnancy. She was careful when she walking and never walked into narrow and slippery paths. Ji Ruoyi was always by her side as well. Moreover, Mu Lingbao was impotent, not blind. How could he not see two living people? Jing Xiao took a sip of tea slowly as he sat inside somebody else's inner residence without a shred of self-consciousness. He sat in silence and made it clear that he was here to support his prince consort. After waiting for a long time, Mu Lingbao still had not come, but another imperial physician had arrived. It was Imperial Physician Zhang who Jing Chen sent for. Now that he was here, the Marquis of Beiwei naturally could not brush off Prince Rui's kindness, so he could only ask someone to take him to check on Lady Qiu again. After Dr. Zhang had went in for a while, only then did Mu Lingbao came in, moving exasperatingly slow. His careless attitude immediately made the Marquis of Beiwei furious. Unfilial son! Why did you dawdle around when your father had called for you to come quickly? Mu Hanzhong was really shocked when he saw Mu Lingbao. The man who used to be slightly fat was now so thin that his cheeks were sunken and his eyes were hollow. When Mu Lingbao saw him, a trace of resentment flashed through his eyes. Mu Hanzhong. When Mu Lingbao saw him, he immediately became energetic and rushed to him in a few steps, reaching out to strangle his neck. What are you doing? How could Jing Xiao let him get away with it? He raised his hand to grab the other man's weak wrist and threw him to the side without much effort. Mu Lingbao fell to the ground but quickly got up. Then he pointed at Mu Hanzhong and said, "Is it you? You were the one who asked people to throw me into the river, wasn't it?" Mu Lingbao's voice was no longer as indifferent as before. It was full of energy and his tone even became a bit sharp. Jing Xiao hugged the person next to him and patted him gently, as if he was comforting him not to be scared by all of this. Mu Hanzhong immediately broke away from Jing Xiao's embrace and glared. He then turned to Mu Lingbao and asked, "Elder brother, what are you saying?" The Marquioness of Beiwei rushed over and grabbed Mu Lingbao. "What are you yelling about? Let me ask you, the secondary wife just slipped and fell. Why didn't you help her and run away instead?" As she spoke, she secretly pinched Mu Lingbao on the back to signal for him to follow her lead. "Mother, this son just heard that my mom did not slip and fall on her own," Mu Hanzhong said slowly. His voice was not loud, but it was enough for everyone to hear him. "What? Are you saying that your elder brother pushed her?" The Marquioness of Beiwei raised her eyebrows and turned to glare at Mu Hanzhong. One should show filial piety and observe fraternal duty, so she did not believe that Mu Hanzhong would outright accuse his brother. Mu Hanzhong pressed his lips. He really couldn't say these words. Arguing with this unreasonable woman would only make the matter more confusing. He took a deep breath and sat down next to Jing Xiao. He didn't care how much trouble they got up to today, but they had to make sure that this matter was properly addressed. At this moment, Dr. Zhang, who had gone in to check up on Lady Qiu, followed a maid out and briefly explained the situation, which was basically the same as what the previous doctor had said. Jing Xiao secretly shook his prince consort's hand while giving a look at Mu Lingbao's pale face. He narrowed his eyes slightly as he said, "Doctor Zhang here was highly recommended by the second imperial prince. His medical skills are quite excellent. Dr. Zhang, the heir of the Marquis of Beiwei, had just suffered a fright. It's good that you're here so you can examine him as well." "No, I'm not sick." Mu Lingbao was very much aware of his own physical condition, so he naturally refused to show it to any imperial doctor. He immediately protested loudly after hearing this. Mu Hanzhong immediately understood what Jing Xiao was trying to do and said, "Eldest brother is kind-hearted, so naturally he couldn't have purposely pushed the secondary consort into the pond. However, not seeing people clearly in broad daylight is no small matter. We have to make sure it's not some kind of ailment." Before he finished speaking, he gave a look to the Marquis of Beiwei with some embarrassment. The Marquis of Beiwei also felt that something was wrong with Mu Lingbao, who had started being aggressive as soon as he came in. Thus, the Marquis of Beiwei turned to Dr. Zhang and said, "Then I'll have to trouble the imperial doctor to give our family's heir a medical examination. Curse you all. Go away. Don't come near me." Mu Lingbao screamed. Seeing the grey-bearded imperial doctor coming forward, he struggled to retreat and looked as if he had gone mad. Dr. Zhang glanced at Jing Shao's expression, pondered for a moment and then said, "Forgive this old official for speaking frankly, but with how the family's heir was acting, I'm afraid he might have contracted the nightmare syndrome." As soon as these words came out, everyone in the room sucked in a cold breath. The so-called nightmare syndrome, euphemistically speaking, meant being possessed by evil spirits, but in actuality, it just meant that the person had become crazy. "That's impossible." The Marquioness of Beiwei immediately cried out as he pulled Mu Lingbao to her side. Lingbao had just suffered a fright. The imperial doctor can prescribe him something to soothe his nerves. He will be fine after 2 days of drinking it. "Father, if it is really a nightmare syndrome, my mother is still pregnant at the moment. I also heard that the concubine in elder brother's courtyard is about to give a birth. If the incident that had happened today happens only once, then it's fine, but what if it happens again?" Mu Hanzhang frowned as he quietly spoke to the Marquis of Beiwei. "Mu Hanzhang, what nonsense are you talking about?" The Marquioness of Beiwei's expression turned ugly. "Let the imperial doctor examine him so we can know whether he had it or not." Jing Shao turned sideways in the direction of his prince consort to protect him from these crazed pair of mother and son. After receiving Jing Shao's cue, imperial physician Zhang took 2 steps forward and reached out to grab Mu Lingbao's hand. Mu Lingbao suddenly yelled, "Get away!" and pushed the imperial physician who was in front of him. Then he turned and ran away. "Stop him!" The Marquis of Beiwei realized that something was wrong and hurriedly asked his servants to block Mu Lingbao's path. He followed him out to the courtyard and caught him. Mu Jin knew that Mu Lingbao was very depressed after he became an impotent. Seeing his son's half-dead appearance angered him so much that he ignored him for a while. Who knew that after not seeing him for only about half a month, he had already become this deranged? The whole house of the Marquis of Beiwei was in utter chaos for a long time. In the end, the Marquis of Beiwei decided to confine Mu Lingbao in his courtyard. Before Lady Qiu gave birth, he wouldn't be allowed to come out for any reason. He also asked the imperial doctor to prescribe him a lot of calming prescriptions which he would have to drink every day under the watch of his principal wife. Madame Du tearfully went to accompany her son in. The Marquis of Beiwei seemed to have aged a lot again. When Jing Shao and Mu Hanzhang gave their farewells, he just waved his hands at them tiredly. Mu Hanzhang did not insist for the Marquis of Beiwei to do more than this with Mu Lingbao. As long as he could ensure the safety of his mother, he was content. He was completely silent on their way back. "If you're tired, lean on me and rest. We'll be home in a bit." Jing Shao rubbed his chin against the top of the head of the person in his arms. "I didn't expect that Mu Lingbao would become like this." Mu Hanzhang pressed his lips together. That incident seemed to have dealt a great blow to Mu Lingbao. He only have himself to blame. Jing Shao hugged his wife tighter. "When you were a child, you had also suffered damage to your body caused by frostbite, but you didn't abandon yourself to despair." He had only lost the pleasure of the flesh. His limbs and muscles were still all intact. It was his choice not to pull himself together and get his revenge. He only knows how to throw tantrums at old women and weak children. He doesn't deserve your pity at all. He knew that his prince consort was soft-hearted, but a person like Mu Lingbao didn't know how to appreciate kind-hearted people. Mu Hanzhang nodded slightly. What happened had already happened. There was no point thinking about it anymore. All he needed to do now was just to protect his mother. End chapter.